Hi, I'm Margaret from Heidi and Lana. In this video, I'm going to show you how to do the finishing steps on the Folio journal cover. I've gathered all of the supplies that we'll need. I have my outside and inside panels that have been blocked, the plastic insert, some elastic cords. This is optional, but a little tag, contrast color yarn, a bulb safety pin, crochet hook, and a tapestry needle and scissors. So to begin, you're going to want to lay your panels flat with the wrong sides together. So I have my inside panel on the bottom with the right side facing the table, then the wrong sides together, and I have my cast on edge at the bottom and my bind off edge at the top. And so we're going to be starting over here in the right bottom corner. I'm going to go ahead and turn this just because I find it a little bit easier to look at the stitches this way. And what we're going to do is we're going to count our slip stitches on these edges to find our starting point. And those look like a V that goes right along the edge. And I think it's really helpful to use a tapestry needle to count with, because sometimes if I just try to follow them with my eye, I lose track of which one I was on. And so I find it really helpful to locate each one with my tapestry needle. And you'll see they just look like this little V like that. And so you're just going to start in the bottom corner and count up on both of the panels and then put your bulb safety pin in to mark that. So I've counted up from the bottom right corner and placed my pin through both panels. So I just went through the slip stitch on the outside panel and the inside panel and just pinned them together. And then we're going to be starting our single crochet seam in the stitch right above the pin on both panels. So just the very next stitch above where you have your pin. Now we're going to make a slip knot with the contrast color yarn. And you can just leave like a 6-inch tail. Doesn't need to be super long, just a 4 to 6 inch tail is good. And we're going to place the slip knot on the crochet hook. And now I'm going to go ahead and turn the panels this direction just because it'll be easier for me to go into the stitches this way. But what we're going to be going into, like I said, is just the slip stitch right after the pin. So it'll be the one to the left of the pin now if you've turned your work this direction. And I will say before I start here, I am kind of a beginner crocheter. I have done a few small projects, but I am not super experienced. So if I hold my yarn and my hook a little bit awkwardly, that is why. And maybe you are a new crocheter too. Maybe this is the first thing that you've ever crocheted. And so we can just be awkward together, and I'll just walk you through it step by step and try to explain everything as simply as I can. It might not even be real technical crochet terms, but I'll just try to simplify it in case this is your first time crocheting something. So we've got the slip knot on our hook, and we are going to go into the slip stitch to the left, very next one after the pin on the outside panel first, and I'm going to go under both legs of that slip stitch. So just insert the hook under both legs, and then I'm going to go into the slip stitch on the inside panel, and same thing, just go under both legs of the slip stitch, and then we'll yarn over. So just wrap the yarn around the hook, and then we're going to draw that through both slip stitches, and now we have 2 strands of yarn of the contrast color on the hook. And I'm gonna yarn over again and pull that through both strands. And that completes our first single crochet. And now we're just gonna repeat that process into the next stitch. So I'm gonna go into the next slip stitch on the outside panel and the next slip stitch on the inside panel. So it looks like 4 strands of yarn because there's 2 strands for each slip stitch. And then yarn over, draw that through both slip stitches, and then yarn over and draw it through both of the contrast strands on the hook. And then I'm just going to do that in the next stitch. Go into the next slip stitch on both, pull the yarn through, and then pull it through again. And so I'm just going to continue in this manner until I get up here to the corner. I've made it to the corner, and I just wanted to show you how nice this single crochet join looks on both sides. It's really decorative, and it's also great because it has give to it. And when we put the plastic insert between the layers, the knitting will stretch just a bit around that. And so it's great that this edge still has a little bit of give to it as well. And so now that we've made it to the corner, we're going to go ahead and continue across the top edge, and we're not going to do any extra stitches into the corner. A lot of times when you're putting a border on something, whether it be crochet or like adding an I-cord border, you would do some extra stitches into the corner to like turn the corner. But for this, we actually want the corner to pull in just a tiny little bit because the corner on the plastic insert is just slightly rounded. And so by not doing any extra stitches in the corner, this will just round just a tiny little bit naturally. And so once you get to the corner, you're just going to go ahead into the next stitch that is now a bind off stitch along this edge, but it's going to look pretty much the same as the slip stitches. It's still going to be 2 strands, and it still kind of looks like a V, only it's going to be going opposite directions. The one on the outside panel will be going this way, and the one on the inside panel will be going this way. And so I'll go under the one on the outside panel, and then the first one on the inside panel, and then just yarn over, pull my yarn through, yarn over, and pull it through again. So just the same single crochet, and then I'll go into the next one. And these might be a little bit tight because they are bind off stitches. Which a bind off just tends to be a little bit tighter, especially tighter than slip stitches. And so if you struggle a bit to get the hook into them, that is why. And so I'm just going to continue in this manner all the way across this top edge. The top edge is completely joined, and now I'm ready to start down the left side. And so I'm just going to do the same thing as I did at the other corner, just go directly into the first side stitch, which will be slip stitches again, and just single crochet into each one all the way down the side. Once the side is joined, you'll continue across the bottom, going into now the cast on stitches, and these will still look pretty similar to the slip stitches. It will be a V that you'll go under both legs on both panels. They'll be going opposite directions again, like the bind off stitches were. After joining about 4 inches or so of the bottom edge, we'll pause and slide the plastic insert between the 2 layers. The star will be in the bottom right corner. And you'll also want to take note of the sets of holes that are in the bottom and top of the spine. We'll be using these later, so just kind of make a mental note of where they are so that they're easier to find. So we'll just carefully slide this in, just working it into the corners. And go ahead and remove my crochet hook here. Just pull this loop out so that I don't have to fight with it. So now you'll just kind of pull the knit panels up so that you can continue the single crochet join across the remainder of the bottom edge and then up the side until you get to the starting point. I've made it back to where we began. And so now to join this, I'm going to slip stitch into the first stitch. So I'll just go into the first stitch here and yarn over and draw that through the first stitch and also what is on my hook. We'll go ahead and do a chain to create the wrap tie. And so that is simply just yarning over and pulling it through what's already on your hook. So just draw it through, wrap it around, draw it through, and you'll just continue like that until you've finished your tie. I finished the chain and woven the ends from the contrast color from the beginning and end. And so now at this point you can spray block the crochet edges if they need it, just to flatten them out. I think I'm going to go ahead and do this side because it's just kind of curling up here a bit. You could even place something heavy or put a plastic container with something heavy in it on the edges to just get them to flatten out while they dry. I also blocked the chain just to smooth it out as well. And then once everything is dry, you'll want to turn it so that the inside panel is facing you. And then you'll thread a tapestry needle with one of the elastic cords. And now we will locate the holes that I pointed out earlier in the spine. And if you forget where they were, if you just turn it to the front, this is the spine here. And so they're going to be down at the bottom, kind of in the center of that. And you want to make sure that you're finding the holes and not just the slits that are in the plastic along the spine, because there are slits through here that make it bend. But you want to make sure that it's down at the bottom and actually the holes, and you can just use your tapestry needle to locate them. You can kind of feel if it's a hole or actually like a slit, depending on how much your needle slides. And so you'll go into the bottom right one first, and then if you just gently bend the spine backwards, you can go into the right one and then come out the left one. And you want to make sure that you are only going through the inside knitted panel and the plastic insert, not the outside panel. And then just pull the cord through. You'll see I did not go through the outside there. And then we're just going to bring the elastic cord up through the center, and then we're going to go into the top left one and then come out the top right one. But I'm going to go ahead and turn it around here so that it makes it a little easier for me to handle. And once again, just make sure that you're finding the holes and not the slits. And then before you tie these two ends together, just flip it over and double check to make sure you didn't go through the outside panel. Looks like we're good. And then I'm just going to knot these ends together. You want a little bit of tension, like a little bit of stretch on the bands. You don't want these to be loose at all. So just make sure they are kind of slightly stretched, because this is where you'll put your notebooks. You'll insert your notebooks under these, and if they're too loose, then it won't hold the notebooks well. And then you can just trim the ends. You can very carefully singe the ends, which is what I did, or you could dab a little bit of glue on them just to prevent them from fraying. And then you can save your other elastic cords for creating jump bands if you want to add more notebooks to your folio journal cover. And then for the last step, the optional step, we're going to go ahead and sew on the little tag. And I'm going to put mine on the front cover in the bottom right-hand corner, but you could also put it on the inside of your cover or just wherever you would like it. I'm going to use some of the contrast color yarn for this. And to start out, I'm just going to simply kind of bury the end underneath where the tag will be. And you could also sew this on before you finish closing up the cover. However, you would need to be really careful not to do it too tight because the panel does like stretch a little bit once the plastic insert is in there. And so you would just need to make sure that you would like allow for that, for the little bit of stretching so that it didn't pull in. I think I'm just going to do it right about in this area here. I'll leave a little bit of a tail there, that way I can knot it after I'm done. I came up through this hole and I'm just going to catch the knitted fabric and come up through it again and then catch the knitted fabric over here on this side and then go bury the yarn underneath and come down to the bottom one. Come up through that hole. That way the little corner has the yarn going both ways on the little corner. And I'll do the same thing down here. Just catch the fabric, come up through, and then catch the fabric and go over to the other one. The next hole. And it is a little bit more challenging to do with the plastic insert in there, but at least this way I know exactly how it's gonna look, how it's gonna lay. And then up to the last one. And then I'll bury my end here. And then I'm going to tie these two together. Underneath there. And then I'm just going to thread both ends with my tapestry needle and then just bury them in the center. Like that. And there we have the finished Folio journal cover. It's all ready to insert the notebooks under the elastic bands and then enjoy using. I hope that this is something that you can be creative with, whether you use it for journaling or list making, maybe planning things, art journaling, keeping track of your knitting projects, just so many uses for it. Thanks so much for watching. Happy knitting and journaling.